She approached the slippery docks with caution. There was a bad storm 2 days past, and the docks were coated with ice, making footing precarious. The wise thing to do would be for her to wait in the comfort of the dock's caretaker's hut until the goods were unloaded, but she was far too anxious for that. She pulled her cloak tighter and huddled against the bitter cold while doing her best to stay out of the way of the seaworthy men. "Do you wait a letter again?" asked a swarthy sailor as he limped past her. A large trunk burdened his shoulder, causing him to slump so low Kira applied to his tattered hat and greasy hair instead of his face. "Nay," she said with a voice that sounded far more confident than she was. Being amidst a group of men who lacked proper etiquette and were without female companionship for months was something her mother warned her about years ago. She knew the risks, but since Margaret's cloth was a secret, she didn't dare ask her brother to escort her. Had she done so, the entire village would have known her business within an hour. "I seek a package from Lady Margaret Templeton." "Mayhap you should wait in the keeper's hut," he muttered as he continued walking by. "'Tis no place for a young lass." "He speaks truth," said a voice that reverberated so deep she could have sworn it came straight from the ocean. "This is no place for a young lady, especially one as lovely as ye are." Kira's nerves practically leapt free of her body from the impact of the energy the stranger emitted. It wasn't the fact that he was tall, well over 6 feet, or the fact that he possessed dark eyes that seemed to look right through her flesh and settle on her soul. It was his energy, plain and simple. She stepped back as he approached. He extended his hand while an offer to escort her safely to the caretaker's hut formed on his thin lips. Instinct told her she'd be in more danger with him than with all the sailors put together, although she couldn't explain why. "I'm fine, sir, but thank ye." Her words had no impact as the man continued towards her. Kira frantically surveyed the dock in hopes that someone might come to her rescue as he reached out and gently took her arm. "I'm fine, truly," she insisted. "Hey, let the lass stay as she is. I shall be free in a moment to help her with her needs," sneered a black-toothed passerby. "My point exactly," the man said with a cocked brow. Her flesh crawled and she shuddered at the sailor's innuendo. She didn't hesitate in relenting to her rescuer's wishes, heaving a sigh as she allowed him to escort her to the hut, all the while craning her head to inspect each laden shoulder that passed them as the sailors and dock workers continued to unload the ship. As he deposited her at the doorstep of the hut, the stranger bowed low, took her gloved fingers in his hand, and said, "Lord Malcolm Jameson, at thy service." Kira curtsied in response. "Kira Donnelly." "A pleasure," he said with a broad grin and dancing eyes that were so dark they blended with his black coat and hat. "Had I known the New World possessed such beauty, I would have come much sooner." She could feel the heat rising in her cheeks as she lowered her eyes. She hadn't heard such elegant flirting since they left England. Where she took compliments for granted in her younger years, her 20-year-old ears hadn't heard such elegance in some time. She clung to them like a child to a candy stick. "Ye blush," he said softly as the tips of his long, well-manicured fingers turned her face toward him. His touch felt icy cold, but then it was freezing weather, and he wore no gloves.